Lloyd's come back, and you're going to be now doing something else. You're going to go and talk about why is it that most Muslims aren't even aware of the Sharia law? What is it about the Sharia law that's even surprises Muslims when we get into conversation with them? The vast majority of Muslims in the West, I mean. And that has been your experience. It's certainly been my experience. Most Muslims I come across just think, these are just a bunch of wackos over there in the East. And they
Mhm.
deserve what they get because ISIS, Taliban, that's not true Islam. True Islam does not follow Sharia. Sharia is exactly what Muhammad did. And what Muhammad did, I want to do. And what Muhammad did, everyone should do because he's the most relevant man today. Help us with this, Lloyd. What do you say on this? And where do you think, and what is it the reason why so many Muslims aren't even aware of what Sharia is?
Many westernized Muslims may not be, but certainly Muslims in the Orient. If you speak with Adam Seeker, for instance, a converted Pakistani Muslim, a good Christian, he'll tell you that all of this stuff is very, very familiar to Muslims in the East. That said, many Western Muslims probably know more about this because this is, shall we say, this is knowledge which is part of the culture. It's cultural knowledge. So I would assume at least at some level they have a clear understanding of it. They have the understanding of the gist of it, even if not the specifics. Another item that I must raise is that it is illegal for Muslims to talk about the Sharia. They are not allowed to. It is effectively treason for them to reveal it. Therefore, this makes the Sharia a secret. They cannot reveal it because it will reveal too much about Islam. Also, the Sharia has the possibility that when revealed, it will embarrass Islam, and this is also illegal, and that is a crime in Islam. To embarrass Islam, to embarrass Muhammad, to embarrass Allah. So there are multiple reasons working against them revealing this.
Oh, so you're saying that Muslims are aware that it's irrelevant for today. They're quite aware of that, and they would see it as embarrassing.
No, to reveal what the Sharia actually says would cause embarrassment. The barbarity, the primitive barbaric violence within the Sharia would cause embarrassment upon Islam, and therefore they must hide it. They cannot reveal it because this will embarrass the Islamic community, the Ummah, and that is a crime.
Oh, so are you aware of Muslims that are embarrassed by the barbarity of it?
I have, for the last 2.5 years on my channel, I've invited every single Muslim who's ever commented on my channel to meet with me on multiple different channels, neutral channels, my channel, to simply sit with me, read the laws in the Sharia, and discuss them and just get their input. They refuse because they're not allowed to, because they're not of a level of authority that entitles them to actually know the Sharia, for one. Two, it is illegal for them to reveal it because this is treason. This is revealing the inner workings of Islam, the secret Islam
That's
that they
their
may not reveal.
excuse for not discussing it with you.
They won't even say why. They simply
You
will
know,
not
it's
reveal it.
because it's embarrassing for them. They can't hold, they
There's
will not be able to defend this, what you're saying.
correct, correct. It will show Islam to be less than perfect, and to make Muhammad or Islam or Allah less than perfect is a crime and it is punishable. I can go into the laws of the punishment if you want to see that, but yeah.
No, I just think this is fascinating. What you're saying is you can't even discuss this with Muslims because it's too embarrassing, it's too barbaric, it's too
Too revealing,
revealing. And
too
not only
revealing.
that, it is indefensible, and it is not at all reasonable for today. If that is the case, why even talk about it since it would be too difficult to defend it?
Correct. And they're not allowed to. This is the province of another level of scholar, that's the Imams. This is
Okay.
not their level. They are just to follow and obey. This is literally what they must do. For instance, we go to the Reliance of the Traveler. It says here, I've mentioned this before, and I'll briefly make work of this. If a Quran is purchased for someone, it is obligatory that the person be Muslim. This has already been violated. The internet has opened up Islam, modern scholarship, like what you're doing, what we're doing. This is starting to open up Islam in a way that it never expected. So the cat, in that sense, is out of the bag. The same is true of books of hadith and books containing the words and deeds of early Muslims. Quran means any work that contains some of the Quran, even a slight amount. Even this holds for any religious books, even the Tabakat. This is a series of biographies of Islamic scholars by Shar'ani. He's a major Sharia scholar as well. So they are not to reveal any of this information. Let's continue. Now, for instance, let's have a look at this, showing the way to policemen and tyrants when they're going to commit injustice and corruption. Again, I've mentioned the Bataclan in the past, when for 3 months in Molenbeek, these criminals who perpetrated the Bataclan massacre were hiding in Molenbeek. They were not informed right? The police were not informed of the presence of these people, because that would be to commit injustice, because what these people did in Islamic law is not a crime. It is perfectly legal. And to reveal their presence there would be the crime, would be the injustice, would be the corruption. And notice here the second law: teaching sacred law to those learning it in bad faith, who do not want the knowledge to apply it in their lives. We are not looking to apply this in our lives as good Muslims. We are learning this in bad faith. So someone who wants to learn Islamic law, not to become a better Muslim or to become a Muslim, this person must not be given knowledge of sacred law.
Hold on.
For instance,
back up that one. What do you mean? Explain that one and back that for me, that second one. Teaching question.
Look, when you read the Talmud is written in a particular scholarly code, the same with the Sharia. So you have to understand these things in the sense that they mean it. So when they say teaching questions, teaching things about sacred law, what if you ask questions? What is in this? For instance, you ask a Muslim, most Muslims will lie to you bluntly if you ask them, what is the punishment for apostasy? What is the punishment for insulting Muhammad? We know what these punishments are, but Muslims will often lie and say, no, that's Western scholars who are lying about this. This in Western missionaries. No, it's not. Islam is a religion of peace. Unfortunately, they cannot, because we would want to know the truth. They have to, as a Muslim, unfortunately, you're trapped in the position that you have to believe and accept everything that is given to you in Islam, including the ugly parts, which they have to hide. Now, don't forget, Islam, dawah, people feel that it is evangelism. It is not. It actually technically is state propaganda. Dawah is propaganda. And the dawah must always present Islam in the best possible light. To reveal the Sharia would reveal Islam in the worst possible light, and therefore they cannot give it to us, because then we would be learning it in bad faith. We would reject Islam. We would bring shame upon Islam and upon the Ummah.
Okay.
All right. Right. So during this series, what I'm going to be doing is I want to demystify by clarifying a number of things. What is the Sharia in relation to Qur'an and Sunnah? Where it is found, the books, and I will make my entire archive of 1,400 books and all of my Sharia manuals available to everyone. So every single source that I have here that I will use will be made available to everybody to download and read and study for themselves. We want to talk about terminology and rulings, what its role is in the life of the Muslim, what are its doctrines. We will move from verses and hadiths to actual doctrine, and from those doctrines, deep doctrines, what does this mean in the life of Muslim? How did the scholars unpack all this and define its meaning and application in general to the specific, to the laws? We want to talk about misconceptions, and we will briefly discuss just the divisions and levels and authority structure within Islam. There is no authority structure. We also want to examine, from a historical perspective, the development. So how, when, where, and why the Sharia was created. Who did this, right? Who were the scholars involved? We want to trace its historical and political development. We also want to compare it to the Talmud Bavli, or the Babylonian Talmud, because it has taken a great deal, it has plagiarized a great deal from many sources, including especially the Babylonian Talmud. It has plagiarized it and also corrupted it. And we want to discuss its importance as the final product and the end goal of Islam, which must be imposed by persuasion or force. Some of the major sources that I'm using is Islamic and Talmudic Jurisprudence, the Four Roots of Islamic Law, and their Talmudic counterpart, Judith Wegner. The links I will make available. I'll put them in a comment, and if you could drop them in the description, Jay. Then, was Shafi the master architect of Islamic jurisprudence? The answer is yes. And then the Reliance of the Traveler. This, amongst many other sources. I will utilize the Brill Encyclopedia of Islam, all 13 volumes. I'll make those available to you. This is a $40,000 set of encyclopedias. It is huge. It is extensive. It is detailed. The Brill Encyclopedia of the Quran, this is over nearly 4,000 pages, 6 volumes. The Digest of Muhammadan Law, amongst others. The Ihya Ulum ad-Din, the Revival of the Religious Sciences, written by the man regarded as the single top scholar in Islam after Muhammad himself. And this book is said to be the one book that can replace the Quran if the Quran ever disappears. That Islam will be satisfied by utilizing the knowledge in this book, and we will utilize numerous other legal and academic sources. Any comment before I continue, Jay?
Yeah, I think what you're saying now, when you say you'll make them available, what do you mean by that?
I will provide links to, I have an archive, a 15 gigabyte archive of about 1,400 books. Every single thing that I use, I will make available so that every source that I refer to, people will be able to download that source and read the information for themselves. I share all my sources.
Folks, what he means then, if you look at the bottom of, just look down for the description box here. We will put those links in the description box at the bottom of this video here. Those links you can use, feel free to do so. Because these are all online. That's the beauty of the internet. We have everything online today.
So let's look at Quran 42:13. He has laid down for you the same deen. Now, they say way of life and belief. Really, a deen is a political system. In fact, Islam describes itself as a deen. We think religion, Islam says deen, which is a political and legal system. Like you have fascism, you have Nazism, you have these totalitarian systems, communism. Deen falls in that same camp as an ism. And this is how Islam defines itself, and we will define it very shortly. So he has laid down for you the same deen which he had commended to Noah, and which we have enjoined on you, and which we have bequeathed to Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, who are all Muslims, so that they should establish the religion and not be divided amongst themselves. So there must be no division. Therefore, the four schools of fiqh are all equal. They're all the same. There might be differences, but those differences do not cause any conflict. They're all perfect. It is obligatory to act according to the Sharia of the Prophet and to abstain from that which was abrogated from the Sharia of Jesus. So you have a political, legal, religious system. It's something that we do not have in the West. This is a complete mishmash of religion, law, and politics. Al-Shar'ani, again, an important scholar, we mentioned him earlier. They believe that Jesus brought a Sharia, a legal system. They believe Christianity to be a religion of law, which it is not, whereas Islam is a religion of law. Caveat. There are some severe limitations imposed by the scarcity of early Islamic legal material, and I believe this is deliberate, and the complete lack of pre-Islamic Arabian legal texts. We do know they've taken a great deal from the Jewish Talmud, Jewish law, and they've also taken a great deal from Greek philosophical and legal and political writings, especially from the Neoplatonists, and we will cover that as we go. I will show you those connections directly. They're very easy to spot. Research is further hampered by the probability that doctrinal considerations led to the expunging, the deliberate deletion of any references to foreign sources from the early legal text. You'll find that in Judith Wagner's Islamic and Talmudic jurisprudence. So they wiped the slate clean when they were done. They deleted all of the material they used. So from Arab legal culture to Talmud. So Islamic law developed beyond region-specific Arab customary laws in the 8th and 9th centuries. The empire had spread. They were coming across cultures which were in many ways different from each other, and they had to create some kind of consensus, some kind of similarity because of the friction and the confusion that was being caused, different practices in different areas. And they utilized the jurisprudential bases of the Babylonian Talmud. Jewish and Islamic law are theocratic legal systems. They rest on the concept of a divine law revealed to a prophet in a scripture. For Jews, this is the Torah. For Muslims, the Qur'an. Rabbinic law developed during the first 5 centuries AD, culminating the editing of the Talmud in the 6th. It distinguished civil, moral, and ceremonial law. Now, Jewish law has evolved extensively, and we're not going to go into the detail on that here. However, Islam smashes and just mixes civil, moral, and ceremonial law and barely makes a distinction between them. Islamic law initially developed during the 7th to 9th centuries. It culminated in the classical theory of Islamic jurisprudence. It does not separate mosque and state. It does not separate civil, moral, and ceremonial law. They are one. It only finished the full development in the 14th century or later. In fact, in the 1500s, the final seal was probably placed on, and I can show that reference, and I will. So the development of Islamic law took about 900 years. There are very strong Talmudic parallels with the legal theory of Imam Shafi'i, with a borrowing, plagiarism, of fundamental concepts from the Talmud Bavli, and given the scarcity of legal provisions in the Quran, which was never intended to be a comprehensive law code, even according to the scholars, this was inevitable. They had to go to an outside source to develop their legal code. And so the Mujtahid Mutlaq, the 4 scholars or the founders of the schools of jurisprudence, have a very special title in Islam. No other scholar before or after has held this title of Mutlaq. So Mujtahid Mutlaq Shafi, he says, the Quran texts are couched in very general terms, which it is the function of the Sunnah to expand and elucidate, to make Allah's meaning absolutely clear. And once the Sunnah then expanded on the Quran, and Shafi is the scholar that made the Sunnah not only important, but made it a critical legal foundation. So he's the guy that said, hey, these hadiths, these are important. Before that, they were not. They had barely any relevance. They were simply stories that Muslims told. But he said, no, these are critical. And of course, this led to an entire, shall we say, industry of hadith.
So this is fascinating, what you're coming up with and what you're actually giving us. This idea, and the reason why Muslims aren't aware of Sharia law in the West. Most of those who are listening would probably look at Lloyd and say, Lloyd, you don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of this. This doesn't make any sense to me. This is not the Islam I know. This is not the Islam I've grown up with. And that makes sense. It could very well be when a Muslim says that he doesn't really mean what he is saying, because what you're saying is that they're not permitted to give us Sharia law. They're not to let us know about it. It is to be a secret because this is something only other Muslims are to know about or hear about. Your take on that and my take on it, I guess most people listening, is there's a reason it's to remain secret, because it's so barbaric. It just is not relevant for today, not in the 21st century, not here or anywhere at this time. We see it as barbaric, and that's why we were aghast and shocked when ISIS came to the fore and we saw what they were doing on a daily basis on our television screens. That horrified us, rightly so. And everybody here in the West was saying, this is not true Islam. This has nothing to do with Islam. I remember in Britain when I was there at that time in 2014, it became illegal in Britain to put in a sentence on any newspaper, no journalist could write Islamic terrorism, because Muslims are not terrorists. There's no such thing. It did not exist. It was illegal to put those two words together in the same sentence. This was almost an overreaction by the West to say, no, this does not exist. This is not true Islam. This is an aberration. Horrified to suggest that maybe our next door neighbor, who is a Muslim, who is a greengrocer, and he's a nicest fellow. And I kept on hearing this from all my friends who, whenever I brought up the idea that there is such a thing as radical Islam and what you're seeing out in your television,
that tells you they have successfully imposed Islamic law. They've imposed the law. See, what you're saying, under Islamic law, to say the word Islamic terrorism or to talk about ISIS as Muslims is slander, right? It's also talebearing. It falls under more than two legal categories, slander and talebearing. Now, in Western law, if I lie about someone and cause them damage, that is slander. If I tell a lie, if I say, for instance, this guy's having an affair and he robbed his boss, he stole $1 million, and you lose your job and your wife leaves you because you have lied about them, that is slander, because they can prove that you have lied about them. In Islam, if someone has stolen $1 million and they are sleeping with the boss's wife, and I reveal this, that is slander. In Islamic law, to tell the truth that is unpleasant for someone is defined legally as slander. I can go to the law, I can show you. So okay. To embarrass Islam is slander.
Okay. And ironically, the embarrassment is not because Islam says it. The embarrassment is because when it's compared to what we know as Western law, it is so barbaric. That's the embarrassment. Here's the irony that I see glaring in even that comeback. This is fascinating. Now, there's going to be some comment that people are going to react to this. Listen, folks, you've got the comment box. Lloyd has said that he'll come and he'll look at and he'll respond to it. You've already seen his name on many of the comments. He's going to continue to do that. As we unpack Sharia law, you can see this is getting more difficult for Muslims, because now we're talking about a code of law that was put together in 4 schools in the 8th, 9th, and 10th century that is sacrosanct even today for all Muslims everywhere and at any time. And for that reason, they have to keep it secret. They don't want you to really know what is there, because it is absolutely embarrassing.
Islamic dogma, Islamic doctrine teaches that Islam is perfect. And to reveal it in a way that is less than perfect is a crime. It is effectively the same crime as apostasy. It is the same crime as blasphemy. It is treason under Islamic law. And I can show the law at another time. I can actually go into it, but to show Islam in a way that it is less than perfect, to reveal Muhammad in a way that is less than absolutely perfect, incurs the death penalty. It is very explicit. And I will go into this at another time. But you see, we are revealing Islam in a way that is less than perfect. Therefore, they must apply Sharia. And this is what they've done, or have done very successfully in many Western countries.
Fascinating. I'm so glad we don't have this problem. Thank God for Jesus Christ, and thank God for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and thank God for the model of Jesus Christ. He is as relevant today as any day, and we do not couch it or have any secrecy about him. Follow him, see what he did, say what he said, and you're going to live a perfect life. God bless you. Thanks so much, Lloyd. This has been fun. We'll unpack more of Sharia law and its improprieties and the inextricable difficulties for Muslim in not only speaking about it as we're seeing, or even trying to unpack it as we're seeing, to let alone try to live it out. You can see it's just going to get harder and harder for Muslims. God bless you. So good to have you on board, Lloyd. Until next time, this is Lloyd and Jay, over and out.
Thank you.